Welcome to Hawkeye, the aviation safety podcast where we dive into the world of aviation safety, exploring strategies for a safer and more efficient aviation industry. This podcast is dedicated to examining the latest trends, news, and best practices in the world of aviation safety. And now your host, safety professional and founder of Hawk Aero Safety, Matthew West.
Hi everyone, welcome to Hawk Aero Safety's Hawkeye podcast, the aviation safety podcast. I'm Matt West and I'm really excited for this week's podcast. I'm here with the remarkable Randy Maines, who I've known now for some time, Randy. I think I was looking back. I think I first met you at Heli Success. Do you remember in Las Vegas? And then following that, your CRM, AMRAM instructor training in 2015. So the time is slipping away, my friend. And
I know.
So I'm super excited. I've just set up this new podcast series, and I thought I have to talk to Randy. You've had this remarkable career in aviation, and this is where you can sit back and enjoy the praise. But what a remarkable career you've had from Vietnam through to the early days, the initiation of air ambulance services in the US, through flying in the Middle East, and then in a big way, a published author in books and magazines in the US, and then into a guiding light in CRM and AMRAM in current times, and now authoring books for children as well. I think this is so incredible. I'm at a loss where to start. Where would you like to start?
Just to clarify for you, Matt, my wife, Kay, reminds everyone that I'm a legend in my own bathtub. And so, only take the safety part really seriously about anything that I have to say. But I was looking at when you and I first got together, and the AMRAM and CRM instructor course, I think, was in 2014. I think it was. Because I looked at Iona's picture and it said August 2014. So we've known each other at least 11 years when we met in Vegas.
And so, if I remember correctly, the CRM instructors course I did, was that your very first session, or was that the second session?
Oh, yeah, it was either the second, I think it was the second or third. And the first one, though, Matt, was amazing because I was, should I go on about this and tell you?
Please do.
Yeah. I quit my job at Abu Dhabi Aviation, where I was operating a Level D flight simulator, a 412 flight simulator in Dubai, training and examining 20 nationalities of airline transport pilots. And of course, in 2012 is when I made my appearance on the scene back in America in the air medical side, because I was sick and tired of seeing the same accident happening over and over and over again. And I finally said, what can I do? What can one man do? So in 2012, I left Abu Dhabi. I quit the job to come to America, in North America, to try to make a difference in air medical safety. And I found for the first year and a half teaching CRM that I was meeting myself coming and going from the airport, which with a busy guy like you probably do the same thing.
Absolutely.
So I decided, because I'm a EASA trained CRM instructor, in other words, in Europe and in Britain, you actually have to have a certification to teach and facilitate CRM courses. And if you don't do at least 2 courses a year, you lose the certification. And every 3 years, you've got to go back for a refresher to see what's changed in the thinking in the industry. And so for a year and a half, I was going to different air medical programs, and it even stretched to Canada and two places that we were sent to, Kay and I, my wife and I, was Australia and Rome to speak there. So people really wanted to listen. But I found myself coming and going to the airport, so I thought what I needed to do is train a whole bunch of Randy Mainses out there. And so I built the very first helicopter specific CRM course based on what the airlines are teaching from the course that I went through in Britain. And so that's the course you went through. It's the 300-page 300-page manual with 14 modules. And it was a 5-day course like you went through. And people would get in front of the class and practice being facilitators. And usually it was a little shaky at first, but on day 5, I'm not talking specifically about you. You were absolutely fabulous.
You can feel free to say whatever you like about my performance. I know how I performed, and it's tough. I mean, even I've been an instructor in the past in different things, but talking about these subjects in front of professionals, that's a difficult thing. If you have I never feel that it's this subject. You have more knowledge about the subject. It's just opening people's eyes to something they might not have considered. It's not, and please don't take this the wrong way. I don't think the content is revolutionary. We all know what we should be doing, but it's the approach and having people consider it in these different phases. Now that I learned a whole load of new information, and at the time I was working for the City of Fontana Police Department, if you remember, it was wonderful taking that back and sharing that with my unit. Because it is those fresh perspectives. And I can see, and I like the idea of the European model in having to refresh in those practices and things, because it does evolve, and you do see different things out in industry. And it's that assurance stage, if you will, that loop coming back and looping back around, and reapplying that. So please continue.
Yeah, no, you did well. What I loved about this is a mutual admiration society here, but what I really appreciated about you, Matt, is that you want to make a difference to the police force in Fontana, and you came with really keen. They're like a puppy dog saying, "Yeah, teach me, give me the information, because I want to take it back and try to make a difference." And that's what I did when I wanted to be a train the trainer, to be CRM instructors. And it's branched out. It's gone nuts. During the pandemic, I had a Swiss pilot browbeat me into giving him the course, paying for the course. I send him the manual. He studies it for about a month, all the PowerPoints and the video clips and the handouts. And then we agree on 2 days to meet for 4 hours each day to discuss any questions he might have, or how to present the course. Because human factors are human factors. It's like you said earlier, we know what we should be doing. We just don't know that we know it yet, not until it's pointed out. I ask a question when I do courses like, what's it mean to be safe? Like you ask a 5-year-old that's just come back from kindergarten, and the teacher says, "You've got to be safe." And the kindergarten kid comes back from kindergarten and says, "Uncle Matt, what's it mean to be safe?" And of course, it's a typical kid question that sounds simple, but it's difficult to answer to a 5-year-old. But the answer, of course, is being safe is knowing what can hurt you and avoid doing it, taking steps to avoid doing it. And to the point of even saying, no, I'm not going to take this flight. I'm not going to do what you want me to do because it's dangerous, or it may exceed my limitations, and knowing your limitations and knowing to say no. So anyway, I started doing the CRM course by Zoom, the CRM instructor course. And I've done probably about 14 different countries now, to include China, believe it or not. A guy from China took the course, but Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, all of North America, and it's taken off. So I can sit in my studio, and like I'm doing now, and I usually have a white shirt and a tie on, and shorts. And we talk about it. And what I say is, people have wanted to buy the course, just buy the course and not meet with me. And as you know, the important part of the course, I feel, is how to present it. And
Absolutely.
the airlines found that facilitation is the way to do it, where the way I describe facilitation is, people are in your airplane and you've got to guide them to the destination, but they don't know where they're going. And so through questioning and questions and answers, as an adult, you come up with the answer yourself, and you're more likely to buy into it. That's what the airlines found out.
No, I mean, and it's always a slippery slope. I find if I can kind of correlate this to my work in safety management systems. So, there's this, big interest now because of the upcoming notice of proposed rulemaking around SMS being more widespread now. And so people are saying, I need a manual, I need a template. And you're very reluctant to provide that. I mean, they can find that on the internet, but you don't. If it's the same with CRM, if you just provide a manual, there's. I'm thinking in British phrases now. Meat and no potatoes. It's not.
Yeah.
It's meaningless on the page, and some of the most incredible CRM presentations I've received. For example, our mutual friend Miles Dunnigan, Director of Safety at Apollo Midflight, he has such an impactful AMRAAM training course, and I had the privilege of sitting with his new students, the new employees, a few weeks back, and it was so impactful because it was personal, and it's that personal element. It isn't just the presentation skills. Miles has had an experience, and he's been in the industry a long time, has experienced the pains and what we've all been through in these companies, where it is personal. And forgive me for bouncing around, it's how my mind works. Last year, I was at the SMS Industry Forum hosted by American Airlines. I'll be there next month again. And I had the opportunity socially to meet Robert Sumwalt, formerly from the NTSB, and picking his brain over a glass of wine. And I said, if you could give me one tip as a safety professional in how to engage with organizations and individuals, he said, it's simple. Just keep it personal. Once it becomes statistics and procedures and policy, and it gets caught in that corporate world. But if you keep it personal, everyone can relate to it. And CRM AMRAAM is exactly that. And that personal connection, just providing a manual. I even hesitate with the online training where it's pre-recorded. When it's still interactive, like you're doing over Zoom, that there's so much value in that, because it's still that interactive, that personal touch. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And in the course, people say, well, how do I present that where that people will buy into it? I said, well, as the AMRAAM and CRM instructor, imagine yourself, you're the conductor of an orchestra. Your audience, the team members in the room with you, are your orchestra. And so without telling them, like I said, without telling them where they're going, without telling them the answer, just ask questions of who, what, why, where, and how, as you want to draw out either the fears or the concerns that they have in their organization. And of course, once you have it personal, like you're talking about, they want to buy into it, and you can really get some good conversations going. And so, yes, I love Robert Summerall. I remember when I came back from overseas after being gone for like 25 years to teach CRM. Um, I knew nobody. I knew nobody in the industry. All I saw after being gone for so long is I watched the same accident happening over and over and over again, inadvertent IMC or in different reasons, from pressure by management or internal pressure or just lack of training. Um, and I just thought, okay, I've got to get through to the folks to say, okay, what do you think is wrong in your organization? Where do you see a need for change? And then you get the people talking, and you kind of stand back and you see some good conversations going on, and then they often can come up with the answer themselves.
But sometimes it's just opening the door for them to see that. Um, and well, I've got a stack of books here on the desk, and would you say it's a good time to bring up The Reluctant Activist?
Uh, well, Reluctant Activist was the third book that I wrote dealing with helicopter EMS. And I talk about helicopter EMS because in 2013, it was the most dangerous job in America. I've got a news clip that I use in my course where the news people are saying it is officially now the most dangerous job in America. It has changed. It has gotten better. But so I wrote initially in 1989, it came out, the Golden Hour, where I wanted to show in a fiction based on fact book how the pilots were burning themselves out because they were working 48-hour shifts, like I was doing when I was when Houston, it was 72-hour shifts, and in San Diego it was 48-hour shifts. And so that's what I was targeting. And I figure if you do it in a book and you read it and take people on that journey, they can say, okay, I see what this guy's talking about now. So my second book, I'm getting to The Reluctant Activist here. The second book, I decided, going along with that theme of taking people on the journey that I had gone on, in Journey to the Golden Hour, it picks up where my Vietnam book, there you go, yeah. Um, it picks up where my Vietnam book, Dear Mom, I'm Alive, stops. It's after I leave the Army, after Vietnam, which was about 13 months later. I take the people on the journey of what I saw to become an aeromedical pilot, and then the 6.5 years as aeromedical pilot. And actually, when I was invited to be the keynote speaker in St. Louis, I brought 135 copies of that book, shipped them to the conference center, and after my talk, where I spoke to 700 aeromedical professionals, went to the National EMS Pilots Association booth, and with the help of Rex Alexander and my wife Kay and some of the other NEMSA guys, passed out these books. It was like $2,500 worth of books to take people on the same journey so they could read the book and say, oh God, I see what Randy's talking about now. And then to follow on from that, to get to your Reluctant Activist, through the time that I'd been watching the same accident happen over and over again, I told my wife, Kay, I said, you know what? I've got the antidote for all these crashes. I've got the answer. But do I really want to enter the fray and put a target on my back and take all the flack just because I'm trying to stop people from killing themselves? Do I want to get into it? And finally, on the 31st of August 2010, when I was in Abu Dhabi, at 10 o'clock at night, I received an email from, actually it was the producer of he was going to make a movie out of Dear Mom, I'm Alive, and he emailed me and said there's been another accident. And this one was in Arkansas. It killed 3 people, night vision goggles, went into the clouds, and they came out in pieces and crashed and killed all 3 people on board. And that one crash was the one that did it for me, that caused me to become an activist for change. I went for a walk. It was 10 o'clock at night. It was about 40 degrees centigrade out because it was in Abu Dhabi, right? Then I said, what can I do? What can one man do to stop the carnage that I've witnessed over the last 24 years, 25 years since I've been out of aeromedical, but I watched it. And then I said, I need to get on the stage at one of those aeromedical conferences. And then 13 months later, I was speaking to those 700 people in St. Louis. And I wrote The Reluctant Activist to follow on from Dear Mom, not Dear Mom, the Journey to the Golden Hour. It picks up at the end of Journey to the Golden Hour to show people what I'd saw really, 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 really serious about stopping accidents, and money was no object. Do it like I was doing it when I was flying abroad, where you're flying with good equipment, two pilots, or at least an autopilot, to be spatially aware, and good equipment in the aircraft. Twin engine, you need twin engine, of course, if you're going to have 2 pilots, because you need the oomph to get everybody off the ground. And so I gave him that cure, but reluctantly, to join the fray, because I didn't want to put a target on my back. And then, of course, after that talk, I was labeled the guy that was trying to put the little guys out of business by advocating 2 pilots. But how much is a human life worth? And that's what I said in my talk. You can go on YouTube at Randy Maines on YouTube, and you can see the last 7 minutes of that talk. And here, this one, to really drive home my message when I spoke in St. Louis. Before they flew me from Abu Dhabi to St. Louis to give my keynote address, it took me 6 hours to cut out each individual name of people who died in the aeromedical helicopter since I wrote The Golden Hour. It was 358 people that died. And I put each individual name in a business envelope, a white business envelope. And people didn't know, Kay, my wife, and members of the National EMS Pilots Association handed out these envelopes to people as they filed into the center, into the conference room. And at the end of my speech, and you can see this on YouTube, Randy Maines, I asked the people that had envelopes passed out to them to please stand up. And half the audience of 700 people stood up. I said, look around. This is how many people we've lost to aeromedical helicopter crashes since I wrote The Golden Hour. And if you don't want to have people continue to die in aeromedical helicopters, there's the gift that I'm giving you. I guarantee you it'll lower your accident rate astronomically.
I mean, that's extremely powerful. And going through your books, how you put at the back the names of all those crew members lost, it's impactful. And again, it's keeping it personal. In fact, in the last page of The Reluctant Activist, it was the letter from Mike Bresden, a former HEMS pilot and Continental Airlines pilot. If you don't mind me reading just a second. If I could offer any advice, it would be try and get the message across that CRM is a radical change in lifestyle. It's something that will take effort on the part of all involved and probably won't come naturally, especially in stressful situations. And I think that is something that's being missed. As an auditor and evaluator and consultant, I'm going to different companies, and a lot of the times in an evaluation or an audit, it's a tick box, exercise. You're going down the list. Do you have this? Do you have that? But now often I get the time to go one step deeper and evaluate the performance and the content. And while all the content might be there, Um, it's again a lot of the time it's more procedural in nature. Do you have an AMRAM course? Yes. And it's a breath of fresh air to go to organizations and see safety professionals teaching it right and doing it properly. Like I have some great colleagues doing that in the industry. It's great to see that. But um, I can't speak highly enough of your CRM instructors course. I hope people who are interested will reach out to you. We'll leave all your details at the end as well to make sure they know how to get in contact with you. But no, I think that's that's something that I've seen, and it's it's one of my pet peeves. And talking of pet peeves, you know, um, is there anything that sticks out right now that you see in industry outside of what we've been talking about now, or maybe related to that still that might be a new issue that's a gripe for you, or anything like that?
Actually, I can't because I've kind of pulled myself away from what's going on in the HEMS industry. Although I am heartened. I've written this down. Uh, I give talks to mainly to relatively non-aviation people now. They're like professional groups here and elsewhere, and they want to hear my background. And the title of my talk is "Life in a Spin: How I Unknowingly became a helicopter safety advocate." And at the end of my talk, I list all the accidents and what I had seen in the industry and how there was such a dire need for change. And then just recently, I started researching to see if there's if perhaps maybe I've made a difference. And the last slide of my presentation, I say, do I think I've made a difference over the last 13 years? And then I was really heartened to read this statistic where it says beginning October 2022 to present day, the helicopter accident rate for fatal and non-fatal accidents in the States was 34% lower and 26% lower than the 5-year average for the same period. So it looks like I'd like to think that I'm making a difference. But Lynn Burks reached out to me last month, and when he saw this statistic, he said, he asked me and a couple other fellows like Randy Rolls and a couple other people, why do you think that is? And I think one of the things I think that has brought it down, and not only just Randy Maines harping on about, learn to say no and don't exceed your limitations, and hopefully management will get involved with helicopter decision making, realizing that they can be part of the problem and part of the pressure on the crew to make a bad decision. And I said, but of course, statistics going back to the year dot, that more people have died probably going inadvertent IMC, going in the clouds, learning spatial orientation, and not having the number one, the training or the kit in the aircraft, like an autopilot or a second pilot, and also the advent of synthetic vision technology. It's to keep them spatially aware, and I think that that's probably had an effect, because I think, from what I understand, a lot of the operators are installing inexpensive autopilots and synthetic vision. So the only problem is, I think we might have been talking about it when we had a phone call, where now people think it's okay to go fly in a cloud because, okay, we've got this kit, and then they, it's like kicking the bear, poking the bear.
I think you hit it on the head there. The technology now, like anything, when it first comes out, is very expensive. and it becomes more readily available and more accessible. Now, I've seen, and in the industry, I think you're seeing more twin aircraft out there. Usually, that's driven more by contract requirements with certain organizations, and that you're partnering with. But those larger aircraft have that technology built in. Usually it'll come as standard. Your autopilot systems. Now with the smaller the smaller single aircraft, those stability augmentation systems and autopilots are available too, and you're starting to see those coming in more. And not just that, the other safety systems too, like the bird strike resistant windshields, those polycarbonate windshields. Bird strikes is still one of those things in the industry that it's a tough one for the industry to deal with in terms of changing procedures. And I'm working with companies right now and using all these different resources like Cornell's ornithology department's birdcast to look at migration patterns and what technologies can we use and what procedures can we use in terms of changing the way we fly during high risk events. And but I think you're right, the technology is out there now, but are we breeding that in our pilots and air crews, that confidence that I've got this, we're well trained, and maybe we might accept more risk than we might do otherwise.
Maybe that's a sort of a rhetorical question. On the bird strike thing, let me run this by you. But at Abu Dhabi Aviation, we always flew with the landing light on, and I was told that helps keep birds away. I don't know if that's true or not. I also think because the oil field that we flew in was pretty hairy, because it was like 15 miles by 25 miles, and I don't know how many whaleheads there were, and it taxed your situational awareness to know where everybody was. So having a landing light on helped.
Absolutely, and I've seen so many different studies, and there was one around the pulse lights, and there was a study saying it reduced it by so much, and then that kind of was contested whether that was actually true or not. But at the end of the day, every company needs to develop their own procedures in how they might approach this, and depending on flight profiles and mission types, as long as you're doing something about it. And I think more and more companies now, as they build out an SMS and start looking at the data coming in, they're starting to see this as an issue. And working for one of my previous employers, a large EMS company, you have a lot of data coming in because you're flying a big fleet. But for smaller operators, it might take them a longer period to come to the same conclusions. Mm-hmm. But again, now with the technology becoming available, I mean, at Heli Expo, I don't know if you saw in the safety zone, even we don't want to say the lower end of the market, but Robinson aircraft, those kind of entry-level aircraft now have polycarbonate impact-resistant windshields. They've got wire strike protection kits that you can have for aftermarket, and all these safety devices are now becoming more and more available. As long as we're cognizant of the issue and doing something about it, and not being seen as seeing it more from a bystander's view, being active in mitigating the risk.
Yeah, I was surprised several years ago when I saw autopilot and synthetic vision technology in a Robinson. So it's there if the operator wants to make the financial commitment.
Too, isn't it? The financial commitment for a smaller organization, that's much a bigger deal. But then again, if you have a large fleet as well, it's running numbers and running your risk assessment and seeing where the risk lays. And there's on one hand making the risk as low as reasonably possible, and on the other side there's the financial management side of things, and remembering that you're in business, and trying to balance those all the time. But I don't know if you saw, just talking about the Robinson with the autopilot, I don't know if you saw Skyrise and their new system with So if you get a chance to check it out, Skyrise, Skyrys. I was talking to one of their test pilots. They have this new technology that's iPad-based system that links into the aircraft, and they actually performed using a Robinson R66 the very first hands-off, fully automated auto rotation to the ground, and it was absolutely spectacular to see. And the technologies, it's looking to make things a lot simpler in terms of aircraft control. So eventually the technology will allow almost fly-by-wire like controls of the aircraft. But in terms of a safety feature, absolutely amazing. So I do encourage you to check that out on YouTube.
Say that again. SKYRYSE.
Skyrys, I believe. Yep. Skyrise, or it could be a Z at the end. You'll find it. You'll find it. But absolutely incredible. And when that technology is, it's not just this organization working on it. With the eVTOL side of things and these unmanned air taxis, this technology is being worked on. But Airbus have their own project too. But all this technology is coming out there, and again, it's changing the way the industry operates. It's changing. Now we're taking more away from the crew. It's a lot of concepts that have to be worked out, not just the technological side, but on the other side. That some of my work as well is on the UAS side, the uncrewed aircraft. Working with these organizations that have 6-foot drones that do automated power line inspection and medical deliveries and these kind of things. Again, it was very interesting doing CRM type training for those crews when they're kind of hands-on, but they're not. They're sitting in a air-conditioned box, a good distance away, flying, over the horizon with these technologies. And they're not actively involved in flying the aircraft. Now they're more of a monitoring role. How do you maintain engagement? I kind of related that role to almost like being a security guard at a mall. You're sitting in the room with all those monitors.
Yeah.
And it gets to that 10th hour of your shift. And how do you remain engaged? How are you engaging with your teammates? And you've got this multidisciplinary team. It's very interesting, but I think the technology's moving at such a pace in both the crewed and uncrewed worlds. Are we maintaining pace on our side on the human element?
Yeah, I guess you don't know until people are doing it, and then you realize that there's mistakes being made. Of course, there's no skin in the game, literally, is there? In a UAE, it's like, oops, I just crashed I don't know how much they cost, but
you wouldn't want to know. It's very, very expensive, and these aircraft, the newer types are in their infancy, and we're talking about big aircraft with expensive payloads. Usually, a sensor payload on these aircraft is worth more than the aircraft.
Wow.
Yeah. And you're still working out bugs, but now you have firmware. It's back in the days of a reciprocating engine and, push-pull tubes and things. Now we're talking about microprocessors doing, and one, I saw an incident where we were involved in the investigation, and it was a firmware update that basically put it into a calculation loop that was unrecoverable, and the aircraft was trying to perform something it physically couldn't. And these things can happen. And so you take the person out of the direct control of the aircraft, and it's a different world. And I think, people are working behind the scenes heavily on this, but I think often the human element is being missed.
Interesting. I hadn't even thought about that, but the unmanned vehicle and CRM.
And it's I'm going to go completely off topic while I've got you here. So drone deliveries. So Walmart, if they started doing these deliveries, again, from my point of view, they have the technology, they're doing all these wonderful things. What are your personal views on having a large drone flying over your house in the National Airspace System doing its thing legally. What do you think? What are your perceptions, and what do you think, as an the non-aviation population, how they see it?
I guess, are they noisy? I guess, are they noisy? And how low do they fly?
Well, so under Part 107, which is the current rules, but most of these organizations are flying under waivers and exemptions, because Part 107, which is the commercial UAS regulations, maintain us below 400 feet and line of sight operations. Well, these organizations are flying these beyond line of sight using satellite communications links, 4G, 5G technology. So they're flying in this low-level environment, and they make noise. They do make noise, and it's a unique kind of noise. And again, from my point of view, the technology is there to make this happen, and has been for some time. The military technology has been out there for years and years and doing this, and flying to a point, dropping a payload, and returning is pretty straightforward. But I always remember back to my helicopter days. I was a volunteer for the Professional Helicopter Pilot Association in Los Angeles, and for my sins, one of my duties was outreach to homeowners associations on noise. Noise mitigation. And when you've had people yelling at you for noise that you weren't particularly making, it wasn't me, it was our industry. And I don't think these companies are engaging as much with the public as they should be, because public perception drives a lot of what's going to be holding them back.
It's a public relations question. Also, I was thinking, how do they fit into the airspace system with other aircraft? And I mean, it's bad enough to think about drones. I remember a real concern about people running into a drone, and people get one for Christmas, and they're these little things, and then these close calls that are happening. How does that all fit into the other the helicopters flying with crew?
Yeah, and it's a big concern, and you've seen exponentially the increase of pilots reporting UAS events and sightings. I remember at Fontana Police Department, when I was flying, I was doing an evening event where I had to land in a park, and they had all the SWAT team had their armored vehicle on display and everything. And I'm coming into land. We've recce'd the site before, high recon, low recon coming in, and my observer said, "What's that?" You look out of the left window, and there's a white drone with flashing red and green nav lights alongside us. So it is a serious concern. The larger drones have and they can be authorized to have ADS-B, so you've got the visibility just like you would another aircraft. But now with these remote ID requirements for smaller drones, every drone, its location and the location of the person controlling it are actually broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
But still, the technology isn't really there for pilots to recognize where they are. So it's one of those states of evolution. But apologies, I just wanted to ask that question because I love people. I love hearing people's views on UAS, and I'm not sure on how advanced the UAS industry is up there in Canada where you are. I'm not really aware of that.
I think it's just coming into its own, because there's a lot of space up here. So I live on Vancouver Island. I live in the Palm Beach of Canada, where we get a little snow, but I just want to just want to make that clear.
So maybe a delivery from Walmart to the island might be quite nice when you want that quart of ice cream at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah. I'd be more concerned about how it fits into how they fit into the airspace system, so they can avoid mid-airs with like other helicopters or seaplanes. There's quite a bit of traffic here around the island.
But having visibility, in my position, 2 reports coming in from different companies, safety reports, it's great to see the AMRAAM piece and the CRM piece working, where now you have multiple teammates on board the aircraft to spot this hazard. And the other thing, laser strikes. So really,
Yes.
laser strikes, bird strikes, and potential UAS events are really spiking right now. And having multiple teammates trained in good CRM techniques and being able to assist should an event occur in whatever capacity that is, even if it's just observation, um, it's crucial, and it's great to see that in action. But I think as an industry we could do better on that. But it's sometimes a tough line for me to walk because I have one foot in the uncrewed world and my other foot's still firmly on the skid of the helicopter.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. But you've got a unique perspective because I don't know very much about the UAV world.
It's interesting, and you're now seeing full-sized aircraft being converted to uncrewed. Especially the target market is going to be the firefighting world, so they can do continuous operations 24/7, and that's really the push that's going on. And we're now seeing, at the start it was those smaller Cabri, R-22 size aircraft, now R-44s and larger aircraft. You look at the military, and they've been operating the K-MAX uncrewed for military operations, and it's a hop, skip, and a jump now to the civilian world. So absolutely amazing. But I asked you if you had any pet peeves or anything. Would you mind me sharing one?
No, I should say no. I don't mind.
So one thing, and you've probably seen this as a safety professional, when as an industry we have proven safety direction, we have a proven program. Say, for example, we know that AMRAAM or CRM is an effective tool. Tool is a good way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
And every year, we seem to have, we go to a convention, like we've just come back from Heli Expo, and I gave my presentation on what I think is quite a well-established theme, more of a refresher, but there always seems to be something new, and organizations are always trying to reach out to the newest thing because it's new. And something that I see as an evaluator going into organizations is, let's get the basics. Let's get the basics in place and established and working before we go reaching for the shiny new object. Do you kind of understand where I'm aiming with that?
I'll keep going.
So I tend to see that a lot, and we get lots of things in, and again, I kind of walk different areas from CRM to safety management systems and emergency response planning, and the most basic things are out there. Tools are available through different organizations. Through, I wanted to say HAI, we have to now say VAI. NEMSPA, you mentioned NEMSPA. What a great organization. And I got to meet the new president, Brett Reeder, at Heli Expo. And these organizations have wonderful resources of proven methodologies and proven processes we can use. So, but why are we constantly looking for the latest thing when we can't get the basics in place?
Yeah.
The basics of SMS for me, in terms of risk assessments, in terms of safety reporting from the field, looking for those hazards and identifying them, getting ahead of the game and being less reactive. The more proactive we can be, the better it is for everyone. But do you kind of see anything like that in terms of? I mean, I'm surely on the side of AMRAAM and CRM, we've got a proven tool there.
We do, and it's the hardest part. I might have mentioned this in the course that you were with me on. That the hardest part of teaching somebody and facilitating a course about the human factors to cause you to make mistakes or good decisions. The hardest thing is that leap from the classroom to actually doing it. And that's, whenever I think about, people getting themselves in trouble and I think one of the worst hazardous attitudes that we all have it, I think, is invulnerability. It can't happen to me. And whenever, I think the best example that it can happen to you is the Kobe Bryant crash, where that pilot, and I've written several articles about him in that crash. You couldn't have probably a more experienced helicopter pilot up there. 8,000 hours. He was a TRE instrument instructor, an examiner. He was in a Sikorsky. It was only certified for VFR, but it had all the bells and whistles for him to just twiddle the autopilot. And he crashed, losing spatial disorientation. And if it can happen to Ari is his name, I think, it can happen to anybody. And so it's taking that leap of what you learn in the class about CRM and taking it to the field to say, you know what? And I've had people tell me this, where, I remember what you said in that class. And I said, oh, I'm not going to make this decision because I remember what you said in the class about saying no and breaking a link in the error chain. And so it's that leap of taking what you learn in the class and then doing it or not doing it, and everybody come home safely. That's the hardest part, I think.
No, I'm totally on board with that. And you mentioned the hazardous attitudes, and then going back to having proven tools.
Yeah.
I sit at the traffic lights and I can identify multiple hazardous attitudes sometimes and bring myself back from that. But I think it was, again, the training and the course, sometimes we just need that, that identification, the correlation, making the connection. And it's tough when you're in the aircraft. Flying the police mission was tough. And you've got multiple radios going, you've got the searchlight going, you're trying to chase the bad guy, you're dealing with multiple airspaces in that LA basin, and now, but having those moments of clarity where you can apply those tools, that's really the value. Absolutely.
Yeah, but hearing you talk just now reminded me of something, and it's you've got to have the backup of your company and the people in the company, the decision makers. And I spoke at HAI this last HAI Heli Expo, where you were, and I gave a talk. It says Rocket Like Sully, the human factors that we can take away from the miracle on the Hudson River, when he landed. And I had a fella come up to me at the end of my talk, and he said, I had to quit my job as an aeromedical pilot because management would not back us up when we made a decision that was safety related. He said, how can I combat that? I said, you did the ultimate to combat that. You quit your job, sadly. But that's why I think it's so important for management to take these CRM AMRAAM classes, to realize, I say in the course, that it's a team member's awareness of how their action or inaction affects the safety of the flight. And a team member is anybody that can have an influence on the safety of the flight. And it can even be one of your significant other. Maybe you have a argument before you leave for work, and that's on your mind, so you're not 100% in the game. Or maybe it's the guy that cut you off, when you were driving to work. Or maybe you're worried about your son or daughter who's sick. So that's why it's so important for management to be on board. Do you think the airlines management is bought into CRM? You bet they are. Because before CRM came to be in 1981, airliners were falling out of the air between 1968 and 1976. 60 airliners crashed, killing I can't remember how many people were killed, but 60 airliners crashed, and finally the NTSB said, "Hey, what is going on here?" And they found out it was human factors, that 80% of the crashes were caused by bad decision making. And then that's when CRM came to be in 1981. And so the point I'm making is that airline management buy into it 100% because it's catastrophic to the business if they aren't. Whereas in the air medical side, there was that crash in Iowa. I think it was 2009. Remember when the crew went inadvertently into the snowstorm, and two other programs. I had a guy do a direct message to me in Facebook. He said, "Yeah, we turned down that flight because I remember you and those funny antenna that you used to wear to keep your antenna up to be vigilant to say no." And we said no, and the next program took it, and they went into the snowstorm and killed everybody.
Yeah. No, it's having the leadership fully bought in on your safety program is crucial. And again, working with some great organizations recently on helping them with their SMS, having the accountable executive fully involved, it's crucial, and having everyone understand the reasons for it, and I think sometimes, these safety policies, they get pushed down the line. It gets written once, it goes in the manual, and it gets forgotten about. Whereas those are serious duties that the leadership team plays in the safety management system, and your general safety program, and making sure that everyone knows, as an organization, the accountable executive is providing every human and financial resource necessary to support that program, is getting fed all of the information from the program, and they're actively looking for these hazards and risks to mitigate them, is huge. And I'm really happy to say that the organizations I've worked with have been on the positive side of that, and it's great to see. It really is great to see.
It's crucial.
Well, Randy, we're coming up on nearly an hour now. Is there anything else you'd like to leave people with from our conversation today?
Well, can I talk about my latest projects?
Sure, please do.
Okay. About a year and a half ago, I felt like a parent, because 9 hours a day, 7 days a week since I took that walk in Abu Dhabi to say, what can one man do to make a change? That's when a little switch went off in my head to cause me to be an activist for change in the air medical side back home. And about a year and a half ago, and that switch kind of turned off because I've been writing for Rotary Pro magazine for 12 years and my safety column and writing books. And I told my wife, Kay, I said, I feel like a parent with a 16-year-old kid that has been guiding them along the path of how to keep themselves safe. And after 16, anybody who's been a parent, you can say you can't tell them much more. It's either, they make the right decisions or they don't make the right decisions. So I felt, okay, I've pretty much done what I can do. And I still teach the CRM instructor course, for example. I still do that for people that want to become CRM instructors for their organization. But I realized also, looking down south from up here in Vancouver Island, I don't see a lot of positive role models for kids between 8 and 12 years old. So I thought I would write a book with characters who demonstrated the traits. This is what I have here. It's honesty, integrity, loyalty, empathy, humility, compassion, friendship, and occasional heroism. And so I came up with a story with a beagle with extraordinary superpowers, and you'd have to read the book to find out how he got those, and two bears that he rescues as a pilot that is dropping water on a forest fire. He rescues these two bears, Boris and Charlie. And together, they learn to fly helicopters. Captain Dave, their boss, teaches them how to fly a helicopter using one of these flight simulators that with the virtual reality. And then they go off and have these adventures. And the publisher wants the kids to learn something from each book. I've written 3 so far. The third one will come out around summertime. But the first book, the kids learn how to fly a helicopter. The second book, they learn the human factors that can cause human beings to make mistakes by going through a CRM course, the same one I went through when I was in England.
The characters there had high vis vests on.
Yeah.
As a safety professional, already I'm bought. I'm sold.
And of course, they learn about Sully making his. The last thing he said before they landed in the Hudson was he asked his co-pilot, "You got any other ideas?" And then the kids will learn the human factors and the actual tool that Sully used on making good decisions. And this is the actual tool, the ABCD green, yellow, red tool, developed by a guy named John Ross 14 years before Sully landed in the Hudson, that Sully was teaching his pilots. So the kids are going to learn basically CRM in book 2. In book 3, they're going to be on a cattle ranch herding cattle in Australia, and they are going to have an emergency where they have to land there at Bell 205 in the outback, and they're going to learn survival skills, just like basically from the pilot survival manual if you ever go down in hostile environment. So that's what I'm doing now, is writing children's books. They're about between 180 to 200 pages. They're called early chapter books for kids. Because I flunked the first grade for not being able to read well. I'm still a very slow reader. And so the feedback I'm getting from the parents of the kids reading these books is that they're starting to read, and they're starting to enjoy reading. Because it's, kids like helicopters and, of course, lovable characters. Yeah.
That's great. And so we'll leave some links at the end of the podcast so people can get those, but they're available on Amazon.
That's right, Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and at the publisher's website as well. And to contact me, if anybody's interested, just to contact me on LinkedIn. Randy Maines on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way.
Sounds good. We'll be sure to share all that information at the end as well. Randy, this has been wonderful. It's been great catching up. I hope we get the chance to do it again.
Yeah, me too.
And until the next time, thank you so much for joining. And we'll catch you next time.
And good luck with what you do. It's a very noble cause.
I appreciate that, Randy. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.